Hi guys, Sean Ferrick here for Trek Culture, and come and join me on a journey of what if as we go through 10 scrapped ideas for Star Trek Enterprise Season 5. Number 10. Regenerating the Borg Queen. Producer Manny Coto said that had Enterprise gone on into a 5th season, they would have looked into bringing back the Borg Queen, who we had of course seen several times before, Star Trek First Contact and Star Trek Voyager. Further to just bringing the character back, he was looking to bring back Alice Krige. Now, Alice Krige, of course, played the Queen originally in Star Trek First Contact and then returned in Endgame in Star Trek Voyager. Her chilling tones were slightly more menacing than Susanna Thompson's take on the Queen, and it would have been absolutely fantastic to see her return as a human character. Now, she would have been brought in as a human scientist who was then assimilated by the Borg. Now, as we know, the Queen herself can be several drones, can be one drone. This was established in Star Trek Picard, and we know that there's another Queen returning in the form of Annie Wershing in Star Trek Picard's 2nd season. So, just because Alice Krige shows up in Enterprise Season 5 doesn't necessarily mean she's the same Queen from First Contact and Endgame, and you know what? It doesn't matter. It sounded like it would have been a fantastic tip of the hat to Star Trek history in general. Number 9. Revisiting the Cloudminders from STRATOS. The Cloudminders is a 3rd season episode of Star Trek the original series, which is surprisingly good considering the reputation that that season has. It deals with apartheid, with the richer people living in this wonderful cloud city of Stratos and the poorer people mining Zenite on the surface of the planet. Now, in the original series episode, Stratos is the main provider to the Federation of the mineral Zenite, and Manny Coto wanted to revisit this idea 100 years previously. The Vulcans could have very easily tipped off the Federation as to where to get this mineral, as it seems to have only been available on this planet. Stratos was something that Manny Coto really wanted to revisit, as in all of Star Trek it only has specifically appeared in that one episode. However, it has turned up as Easter eggs throughout the other series, particularly in Deep Space Nine, where it's advertised on view screens in, say, the Replimat or Quark's Bar as a very popular holiday destination. The original city was designed by Matt Jeffries, but it never really got that finished treatment. So when the original series was remastered, it got a lot of an upgrade, which would have then been fully realized in the CGI of Enterprise's time. Number 8. An entire season in the Mirror Universe. In a Mirror Darkly is one of the more fun two-parters in Enterprise's history. It comes late in the 4th season and it's set entirely in the Terran universe. The ending of that episode sees Hoshi take over as the Empress with the much more advanced USS Defiant under her command. Manny Coto had 2 reasons for wanting to follow up on this story. One was the story of Hoshi herself. How would she go from having a lot of firepower to becoming the undisputed Empress of the Terran Alliance? And that story, with all of the bloodshed that comes with it, was something that seriously interested him. The other way of doing it was to go completely balls to the wall berserk and do an entire season set in the Mirror Universe. Now, it remains to be seen exactly how this would have come to pass, and in a way we saw a shade of that in Star Trek Discovery's 1st season, when we spent half of the 1st season in the Mirror Universe, with Empress Georgiou and of course all of the ships of the time, serving as a wee bit of a tease as to what we would have got, even though we did get a blink and you'll miss it reference to the USS Defiant. Number 7. Thundercats. As anyone who has been watching this channel this season of Lower Decks' ups and downs will know, I am a Kzinti fan. I like them. They're giant cats. What's not to like? And it turns out that Manny Coto was also a fan. So now I feel vindicated. The Kzinti were loaned by writer Larry Niven for the original animated series of Star Trek. They arrived in the Slaver weapon. They have since only appeared by name in Star Trek Picard and have now appeared as a member of the crew in Star Trek Lower Decks. The 5th season of Enterprise would have included an episode called Kilkenny Cats, written by Manny Coto himself. Writer Jimmy Diggs had designed a Kzinti ship for use in the episode as well, and unfortunately, beautiful as the design was, it never got to be used. Now, the Kzinti are one of the great underrepresented races in Star Trek. So far, the only Kzinti that we've seen in Lower Decks has not yet received a name, which may immediately date this video as to when this is released and what's coming up in the rest of the season. However, bring me back some of those cats, particularly Kilkenny cats. Kilkenny is from Ireland, and so am I. That makes me happy. Number 6, T'Pol gets the SAAVIK treatment. In the Season 4 episode of Star Trek Enterprise, Home, we are introduced to T'Pol's mother, T'Les, and, much more stressfully, Trip is introduced to T'Pol's mother, T'Les. Because at this stage, Trip and T'Pol were having their sort of, are they, aren't they, we all wish they were full-time, they make such a great couple. This episode, much like the Next Generation episode Family, followed a drawn-out period of conflict where the crew seriously needed some R&R. One person we don't meet in this episode is T'Pol's father, who is said to have died many years previously. Going into the 5th season, Koto had planned for T'Pol's father to have been revealed as a Romulan agent. This, of course, would have made T'Pol half Romulan. This would have gone a way toward explaining some of her more emotional outbursts from the first couple of seasons. Of course, they used, things like Trellium and the infection that she got from the mind melt to sort of explain this as it went along, really when they were just trying to flesh out the character a little bit. This would have put her in the exact same backstory as Lieutenant SAAVIK was originally due to receive in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. If you can recall, Kirstie Alley's take on Lieutenant SAAVIK was a much more emotional performance than Robin Curtis's take on SAAVIK in Star Trek 3 and 4. This was because she was to have been revealed as half Romulan. Now, going into Star Trek 3, director Leonard Nimoy was having none of that. He had no interest whatsoever in depicting her as half Romulan, and therefore that element of her story was dropped. This would have been recycled for T'Pol and would have allowed us to further explore T'Pol's background, but also the crossover between Vulcans and Romulans. Number 5, the birth of the Federation. Now, the much reviled finale, These Are the Voyages, finishes up with Archer walking up those steps to deliver his commencement speech at the inauguration of the Federation. But hold on, that's a big gap between the previous 2 episodes, Demons and Terra Firma, because that's 10 years of history. We had plenty of room to tell these stories going into a 5th season. Producers and writers Rick Berman and Brannon Braga had said that about These Are the Voyages, this was supposed to be a tribute and had always been planned for the finale of season 4, regardless as whether the show was cancelled or not. While that comes with a bit of a stench of horse manure, that also does a little bit of a disservice to the show in general, telling, well, we know how it's going to end. Why would you then give us the rest of the stories? So that there's a little bit of retconning going in there, I believe, all allegedly. We had a long way to go from the slowly developing friendship of the Andorians, Tellarites, Vulcans, and humans in the 4th season before they amalgamate into the Federation. It is, in fact, one of the great unexplored periods of Star Trek's history. If you look forward then to Star Trek Discovery, which is set before the original series, there is still about 100 years of history there left to explore. There is literally tons of stories that can be told, all which would lead into the formation of one of the greatest alliances the Alpha Quadrant has ever seen. Number 4, continuing the temporal Cold War. The temporal Cold War took up much of the 1st and 2nd seasons of Enterprise, and it seems as though the audience never truly warmed to it, because as season 2 was coming to a close, ratings were falling, and this looked like it was going to be trouble for the show. It was revamped slightly, the Xindi arc was introduced, and the show went off in a bit of a different direction. Now, personally, I do think this was a good decision for Enterprise, which is not to say I didn't enjoy the Temporal Cold War. The 4th season begins with a 2-part episode, Stormfront, which was filling a mandate, and that mandate was, get this Cold War done. Get it done, get it sorted, we don't want to deal with this anymore, as was decreed by the producers, which it did a disservice to how much of a build-up to the temporal Cold War there was. Who exactly was this future guy that Silic was speaking to the whole time? Was he a Romulan agent? Was he an agent from Federation way in the future? What was going to be revealed? Well, it turns out there was a couple of options. One, it could well have been a Romulan agent, but another was that it could have been Archer himself in the future influencing events to come to a certain destination, which of course we don't know where that bloody destination is because the bloody show was cancelled. All is not massively lost, because in Star Trek Discovery's 3rd season, we know that there were huge temporal wars between the 24th and 25th centuries and the 32nd. So that means that quite possibly we could see this story played out just on a different series than we originally expected. Number 3, Whispers of the Romulan War. The original series episode Balance of Terror was the first face-to-face meeting between the Romulans and the humans. So that's been set in stone. We can't really mess with that. However, the glory of television and the glory of Enterprise being a prequel is that we, the audience, know what the Romulans look like. So, in Star Trek Enterprise's 4th season, when they did the episodes United, Babel 1 and the Enar, we were able to see what was going on Romulus without spoiling canon. Well done, Star Trek Enterprise. We then know that between the events of Enterprise and the original series, there was a devastating war between the Romulans and the Federation, and it was all fought with long-range weaponry. There was the stage set for this war to break out in Enterprise, and as we had seen before with the Dominion War in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, this need not have been confined to a single season. In fact, it could have been told over several years. That way you still get the gravitas of a huge interstellar war, but you also don't have to commit every single episode to it either. Again, another one of the great missed opportunities caused by the cancellation of the show. This really was something that could have deepened Romulan lore. Now, we are getting more Romulan stories in Star Trek's Picard and Discovery, but these are the Romulans broken and lost from their homeland. Let's look back to the Romulans in their prime. Number 2, Requiem for a Flint. Now, if you think back to the Trek Culture video, Oldest Characters in the Star Trek Universe, you might have noticed a missing name, and that is Flint, who first appeared in the original series' 3rd season episode Requiem for Methuselah. And hands up, that's because I forgot him. However, Manny Koto did not forget him and had in fact intended to bring him into the 5th season of Star Trek Enterprise. By the time Kirk and crew met Flint in the original series, he had lived for several thousands of years, even though he had begun as a human. He'd adopted many personalities throughout the years, including Plato, Johannes Brahms, and he was very much active on Earth around the time of the birth of the Federation because he was well aware of it by the time Starfleet came knocking at his door. That means he could easily have interacted with Archer and just asked him not to say anything, because there are many things that have happened throughout Star Trek's history that people haven't necessarily gone and filed their reports on. And for example, the Vulcans as well could easily have been aware of this person without feeling the need to reveal his identity to Starfleet. It would have been a fantastic way again of tying the original series and Enterprise in together with a character crossing over in both without spoiling canon. Number 1, more SHRAN! More SHRAN is always a good thing. Give us more Combs. We were robbed, absolutely robbed, that Jeffrey Combs was not made a main character in Star Trek Enterprise. He had many guest appearances, although most notably as the Andorian commander SHRAN. Going into the 5th season, Manny Koto had planned for SHRAN to become a member of Archer's crew. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he joined Starfleet. He could have easily been on the bridge in the same capacity that T'Pol was in the 1st season, where she was an advisor and an ambassador for the Vulcan High Command. He could have been an advisor ambassador for Andorian Military Command. We are delighted to know that Jeffrey Combs will be returning in Star Trek Lower Decks, but for the love of God, will you make this man a permanent employee? Sake! That's everything for our list today, guys. If you know of anything that I might have missed off this list, please drop it into the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And in fact, on that, guys, every time that you hit like and every time that you hit subscribe, you massively help this channel. You help us to grow and you help us to continue putting out content. So please, if you haven't already, please hit like and please, significantly, please hit subscribe. I have been Sean Ferrick for Trek Culture. You can catch us on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can catch myself on all the socials at Sean Ferrick. You look after yourself till I see you again, guys. You live long and prosper. And thanks a million.